Hey audience, I just wanted to record this part early. It's off the script, obviously. I did want to say that we are definitely going to be spoiling Chain of Memories, and I did want to say that if you were that one weird person who bitched at me the last time about the spoilers, and I kind of just wanted to be a bit more transparent with this one because it's plot heavy and it's pretty relevant to the Kingdom Hearts series overall. So if you want to keep yourself under the dark, or you haven't started the Kingdom Hearts series or this game in particular, yeah, we're going to be spoiling it. Don't watch this if you're planning to play it because it's going to spoil some major plot points, and we are going to discuss it in detail. So yeah, spoilers. And with that out of the way, we are going to get back to our regularly scheduled video content. You know, guys and gals, I do feel like it's been a while since we've seen a portable game on this channel where it was actually trying to be good and not suck the enjoyment out of the room through its mere existence. I had no idea what I was getting myself in for when I started going back and doing the side quest Kingdom Hearts games for the first time blind, but even after Birth by Sleep, if you told me before I started this that the innovation for the next game, Chain of Memories, was going to be a CCG, I would have scoffed immediately. A card game seems like an odd mix for what Kingdom Hearts usually does, so it seems like a weird move, but here it is plain as day, a hack and slash combined with a tactical card game. Well, let's check it out. This game takes place immediately after when Sora, Goofy, and Donald got lost in the original Kingdom Hearts, and they managed to sprint their way not only directly into a new universe, but also this giant building, Castle Oblivion. This castle turns out quickly to be a trap, orchestrated by a shadowy organization of people in robes that seem to know Sora's every move. They call themselves Organization XIII, and after playing through this whole series of games, it's pretty easy to see that Organization XIII is the best thing that has ever happened to Kingdom Hearts. 13 different people working towards dark goals of ultimate power and subverting the Kingdom Hearts that each have their own unique powers and personalities. What makes it really great is that they aren't all cut from the same cloth. Frequently, they find themselves butting heads and pulling stupid stunts when put into a corner with a lack of a singular vision or motivation between all of the characters. Plus, the reason why they exist in the first place takes the entire plot of Kingdom Hearts into a completely new direction that can branch off to give the plot more interesting wrinkles and unforeseen developments later down the line. Organization XIII is fantastically mysterious, which is why I like them so much as characters. Some of them are straightforward with you, and then others play really cloak and dagger cagey, so you never really get a good grasp of what's going on behind the scenes, since it seems like, from this side of it, half of the team isn't actually talking to the other. Plus, half of what they do collectively isn't shown to the player at all, so they're constantly sneaking up on Sora's team and catching them off guard. Castle Oblivion's trap is revealed immediately by the organization for some weird reason, and they tell Sora and friends that they will start losing their memories piece by piece, as this is just what the castle does. But in order to help him along in his quest to escape the castle and continue saving Kairi, the organization hand him his first card. The story reason why the card exists is that they are representations of memories that Sora has already experienced from the original game, recreated in the castle as a simulation. None of the people in the levels actually exist, they're all just coming from simulated memories. I'm not really sure why the cards are Sora's only means of combat, but that's the reason why the level cards exist at the very least. It seems weird that the organization is handing him the literal keys to the castle, but Sora goes along with it because he has nothing else to do, and the organization keeps stringing him along because Sora is an idiot, and ironically, they have all the cards. And since we're talking about the cards, let's talk about the combat in detail, since it's kind of this entire game's whole selling point. Let's just say that it works about as well as Square Enix's attempts to marry real-time and turn-based combat because it has the exact same problem. See, hack and slash gameplay is dependent on instant action because the enemies have the ability to attack at any time. which is why it works. It's flashy and satisfying to string together combos and dodge around and defeat powerful enemies through better loadouts and tactics. Slowing that down with the cards was a terrible idea, because on top of having to dodge enemy attacks in real time, you end up constantly distracted by looking at your deck and setting up combos, responding to enemy counters, and trying to add up math, or look for cards you need in a pinch that is at odds with the game still trying to do that same hack and slash formula as the other games. Thankfully, Square Enix slowed down the combat somewhat to make up for this, but it's still not a good pairing of gameplay styles, especially when things start getting technical during the boss fights and all the gimmicks. A great counterexample to this is Metal Gear Acid, and the main reason why it worked there is that stealth games are actually really close to a turn-based system. It's a movement game where you have to respond constantly to enemy paths, which make it really easy to turn it into a CCG, because in the regular Solid games you are just responding to enemies anyway. So switching it over to a genuine turn-based system doesn't end up being a gear grind, whereas in Chain of Memories it absolutely is. There isn't a rhyme or reason to when the enemies play their cards, since there isn't a hard rule about how far away the enemy has to be in order to throw a card at you, and when you are constantly fighting multiple enemies that have all of these different attack patterns, this can get really frustrating when you are trying to string together some hits in order to kill something only for a counter or a zero card to be tossed at you mid-swing, and then you take a punch to the head, followed by a combo from the asshole you were trying to kill in the first place. The way that Chain of Memories works is that each card has a number of 0 to 9. The cards are split between combat cards, which allow Sora to swing his blade, magic cards, which does the magic attacks from the original game, and then there are the item cards, which are potions and ethers and whatnot, and finally you get the summon cards, which summons an ally character to do a special attack, and finally there are the boss cards, which give you passive effects when you put them in your deck. These cards are chosen by flipping through them with your controller. When the player has played all their cards, they then have to charge up a reset while standing still in order to redraw their deck. This charge time increases with each deck reset, making it like pausing to drink Estus in Dark Souls, except it takes even longer. Additionally, the game gives you the ability to string 3 cards together in order to play them as a combo. These combos can either be a bunch of random cards who add all their values together to make it really hard to counter, and then they're played one after the other immediately, or the combo turns into a sleight, which turns those 3 cards into one devastating special attack, and that's just it. After the first several levels, combos are an invaluable tool for the game for protecting your potions to get your health back, or preventing counters in harder fights. And in addition to that, the rule about the 0 card is that the 0 card can be countered by anything because the game counters whatever has a higher value when it's played. However, the 0 card flips around and you can play a 0 card on anything in order to counter it, so it's the ultimate counter, but then it's immediately countered by whatever is played next, which makes it useful and also really annoying to kind of deal with. In order to combat the effective combo mechanic, the game also deletes the first card in a combo from the deck forever, unless an item card is used to get those cards back. You can't get those combo sacrifices from deck resets, meaning that you have to build your deck intricately to get the best use out of your sleights. However, the great thing is that there are also several combos in the game that absolutely destroys any enemy or boss you use it on, so either Google them or try and figure them out on your own, but there is definitely an easy way available to break this game in half if you know how to do it. And some of the sleights aren't super specific about which cards you need to make those combos, so it's easier to set up than you would actually think from something this intricate. I'll say this for the game, the CCG aspect is well thought out for being a one-game gimmick, and fairly handled between the player and enemies, since there are game-breaking combos available for most occasions. It just seems weird that it exists in a hack and slash where you have all this setup time in between hitting things with Sora's Keyblade after your first few attacks. The gimmicks and the constant boss fights at least keep the game interesting, along with having to play room cards, giving the player some control over the difficulty of the game as they're progressing through the levels. So I will give them some points for putting the work into getting this one game gimmick CCG working fairly for all involved, even though it's really weird that it exists in the first place. Throughout the game, you'll be getting cards quickly, and there are stores available to buy cards at somewhat reasonable cost, so there's quite a bit of customization available for your decks, and you're never really going to be strapped on resources unless you suddenly want to make combos using specific magic cards, since there isn't really a good place in the game to get specific cards at a moment's notice, so you have to think pretty carefully before you throw any cards away. You should really think about what you want to base your deck around, probably by the middle of the game so that you don't get caught off guard. It's an interesting addition to a video game, but it's just the wrong idea for a Kingdom Hearts game. Since this game is based off of memories of the previous game, this gives Square Enix full license to have the player play all of the levels of the original Kingdom Hearts again in Chain of Memories. Aside from Castle Oblivion itself, there are no new Disney locations in this game, which is really freaking lame, since the same bosses are in the same arenas doing the same thing with different scenarios for the locations, revolving mostly around the characters losing their memories and panicking. That doesn't mean that Chain of Memories doesn't have something going for it. You get to fight some new bosses, 6 of the organization members and a couple others, but that's really all you get in terms of content changes. I think Chain of Memories still makes it work since the new stories in the levels and the narrative around the castle is really intriguing. This is why you need to play these side games in order to get the full experience out of the Kingdom Hearts series. And it's because the lower budgets for portable games, back when this was on the GBA of all things, meant that the Kingdom Hearts team got to go a bit crazy with its new plot ideas, and these games are the ones that actually push the plot forward. These games make the entire series much more satisfying to play through, since you got to see the full arcs of the characters and get invested in their storylines as they're wrapped up in the main entries of the series. Chain of Memories was a completely different case as to all those other games, since it actually managed to subvert the series' reputation to do something totally unexpected by the end. Throughout the journey through the castle, Sora slowly starts losing the memories of his friends before he showed up to the castle, along with Donald, Goofy, and oddly enough, Jiminy's journal chronicling the events of the original game. Yeah, I also forgot Jiminy existed. The memories start becoming altered after a while, showing a totally different girl getting involved in Sora's childhood. Since the story is pretty well written, the developing story of Sora's altered memory is getting talked about and taunted by the organization members as they keep pulling the strings behind the scenes, planning about what they're going to do about Sora, telling him that he's losing important memories of Kairi as they get replaced by the true memories of Namine, kind of getting scrubbed off and revealing the truth underneath as what they say in the castle. Slowly, Sora's mission becomes saving Namine and taking her back to their island. Someone that Sora suddenly remembered was a long-time childhood friend because it's a true memory. By the time Sora reaches the top of the castle and the organization member responsible for this entire plot against him, Marluxia, things have drastically changed about Sora. And then it's finally revealed that the events of the entire game were completely bullshit. The castle didn't actually have the power to alter memories. It was Namine who was using her powers to alter Sora's background, combined with the journey through all the level cards to cause doubt in Sora's mind and eventually turn him over to the side of the organization through this friendship with Namine so that they can acquire the powers of the Keyblade for their other bigger plan. It didn't work because Namine was working under duress, having been imprisoned in the castle by the organization, which I just thought was a brilliant subversion of the series tradition. Kingdom Hearts is defined to its core by these words of destiny that guide Sora and the others to predestined events, and how there's all these influences and grandeurs surrounding their journeys, creating rivalries and friendships along the way. Hell, the entire character of Gensid is basically there just to fucking spout goddamn destiny bullshit at Sora, and he's expected to believe it 100% because they're his destiny. So, seeing that message of destiny get exploited by the organization just to fuck with Sora and end up telling him that the magic wasn't real was unexpected to say the least. Marluxia's planned bombs to the point where even the Riku robot built by the organization is no longer listening to him. We'll talk about that later, don't worry. And Sora is going to have to fight Marluxia personally, where by the end of the game, I completely whooped his ass using game-breaking combos. We'll learn more about this in the next game, but let's just say for now that the organization didn't really send the right people to the Castle Oblivion project, and it ended up causing a lot of infighting. The game ends with Namine promising Sora to restore his memory, but he'll have to be kept in stasis for quite a while to make that happen. Surprisingly, the game doesn't actually end after the credits. There's an additional campaign where you play as Riku. The portion of Ansem's power inside Riku at the end of Kingdom Hearts transported him to the basement of Castle Oblivion for basically the same reason that the organization lured Sora to it. Riku has to fight through the same levels as Sora because Ansem wants to coax Riku through all of these challenges to fall back into the clutches of darkness and attain more of Ansem's power so that he can control Riku. Thankfully, with the touches of darkness that Riku got during the first game, he has access to mechanics that Sora does not. He gets the ability to do a form change instead of the slights that Sora had, which allows him to gain new attack combos and a lot more damage output when he's leveled up, which really helps considering the offset that Chain of Memories has to balance that out. Instead of being given a bunch of cards and building your deck in the regular game, Riku mode gives the player a deck at the start of each level which cannot be altered. The big problem with this is that not all of the Riku decks are created equally, and there will be one or two levels where you are given a lot of 1 to 4 cards and find yourself really goddamn jonesing for a 7 or 9 at those parts of the game. It gets really annoying because not all of the Riku decks are balanced for that level, and the combo sacrifice rule still applies along with having no summon cards or boss cards. Since this is a recycled campaign, the levels are shorter and there aren't as many doors, which is a nice change for this mode. When I have a bad Riku deck, I don't want to be there longer than I have to, and the Riku campaign doesn't add a lot of new scenarios for the levels that you're going to, so even during the good ones, there's not really a big reason of keeping you there in the first place. On the other hand, Riku is given several unique boss fights to his mode, which gives me some reason to want to play it, even if there wasn't the story of Riku mode, which involves the Riku replicant. That was also brilliant and helping support this mode. The story of Chain of Memories is just super solid. A lot better than the loose handling of the original game's plot, which makes it a grand intrigue, something that you want to see through. The Riku replicant was created by Vexen, one of the scientist members of the organization, who implanted Riku's memories into it in order to create a super soldier that'll fight unquestioned using the powers of a Keyblade wielder, on top of experimenting with the power of memories and what they can do to the hearts of people. Throughout the game, the replicant encounters Riku and Sora, who keep defeating it and instilling doubt in the replicant about its fake memories, motivation to fight for the organization, and learning something like friendship by the end of its journey. It makes the replicant its own character in spite of Riku dissing on him every time he loses. It makes the series a lot stronger and the overarching plot more interesting, since Kingdom Hearts now has access to these protagonist replicants to use later down the line, wink wink. By the end of Riku's journey, he has vanquished Ansem once again and has better control over his dark powers, and he ends up meeting with Namine to learn about the fate of Sora. He vows then to protect Sora and aid him in any way he can to being freed with his memory intact. That is where Chain of Memories is going to leave us for now. While working on this script, I found that I actually have more of a soft side for this game than others in this series, and I think that really speaks to the power of a good story can have on a gaming experience. Gameplay can be cool or it can be dull at the time, and it definitely matters in the grand scheme of things, but unless it's really unique or quite terrible, you aren't going to remember it after the credits roll, whereas a good story will stick around for quite a while, especially when the plot points in that game are quite important for later games down the line, which forces you to remember Chain of Memories and what happened in it. The subversion of the True Memories stunt pulled by Marluxia's team was great, and the introduction of the Riku replica was a great idea for a tangent to back up that stunt. The replica was also a great character, being believable while also introducing something altogether new to the story. While Marluxia definitely isn't the best villain, later games will support his character arc better and flesh out this entire scenario to be more memorable as a story within the series. But what we got here was pretty well done in of itself. His treatment of his teammates and what they talk about, the backstabbing from Axel, and the toying with Namine gave the cast of villains in this game pretty good introductions, especially since this is the first iteration of Organization XIII in the series. I'm actually really fond of what Chain of Memories tried to pull as a Kingdom Hearts side story, since it took the traditions of the series and played with them, turned them around a little bit to create something unique in the series that really stands out as a highlight. Of course, it had to be a bright spot in the series to get away from how annoying the card combat is, only exemplified by the butchered Riku mode that stuck you in situations that you couldn't get away from, which is pretty toxic in a CCG where the entire point of the genre is to build decks and find combos to beat big foes. The entire concept does not work in a hack and slash, and I really wish that Square Enix would have totally revamped this game for the Rechain remake to be a turn-based game, because this is where that idea could have shined the hardest. Whereas in what we got here, it's simply two different gameplay ideas fighting each other constantly. While I do appreciate that Square Enix tried to put new spins on the levels copied from the original game, it still leaves me shaking my head that Chain of Memories reused every level from Kingdom Hearts with barely anything new to show for itself other than a different scenario in that level, which more often than not results in the exact same plot points being used anyway. My appreciation for what Chain of Memories does mirrors my personal love of Metal Gear Acid, where the game front loads a ton of mystery and throws new characters at the screen, pulling the main character's strings to fall into more mystery until this whole giant tangled mess collapses in on itself, revealing what ridiculous circumstance was behind the entire facade. It's definitely a good game, although playing it is really annoying since it turns into a constant headache until you get access to a deck that can machine gun out game-breaking combos. I would recommend this mostly to fans of the series or the genre because they'll have a taste for this sort of thing, whereas people who play this as a first-time comer are going to have a bad time learning these conventions on the fly. But whatever. I say give it a try, especially if you're following the series, because for those people, those Kingdom Hearts fans, without a doubt, you need to play this game to get the full experience of the series. There's no way around that. The events in this game are vital to understanding fully the next couple games in the franchise, especially Kingdom Hearts 2. I'll finish off this video with some numbers to show the conclusion, and wish you all out there a victory for gamers. Thanks for watching.